I've always really been enthralled with what I call the wrong guy stories, you know, like where someone just messed with the wrong guy. Now, I know you have to have a lot of friends like yourself who are certified bad. And so can you share with us a story or time? It doesn't have to be about you. I don't want to have you incriminate yourself, but have you ever been in a situation where someone was just running their mouth to the wrong guy?
I have, yeah.
This is the Meat America Podcast, presented by Code 3 Spices, produced by Red Meat Lover. And now your host, Joey and Mike.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Meat America Podcast, presented by Code 3 Spices and sponsored by Grill Great at grillgreat.com, Rockwood Charcoal at rockwoodcharcoal.com, and they're both found in retailers across the country. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Ardent Spirits. Today we're here at Old Herald Distillery in downtown Collinsville. I'm Joe Lampe, aka the Chief Beef Officer of RedMeatLover.com and Red Meat Lover on YouTube. Today I'm back again with my co-host Mike Radosevich of Code 3 Spices and Code3BBQSupply.com. Mike, how are you today?
Joe, we've had a fun day, man. We talked to Meathead Goldwyn.
Yes, great conversation.
We just talked to Mr. Jamie, who we're going to have on a lot more future episodes.
Yep.
But I'm really excited today. My favorite UFC fighter in the history of fighting, Mr. Jim Miller, is with us today. You're going to have to bleep that out, wizard. Okay. Jim, thank you for coming on. And this ain't me kissing your ass. I am such a big fan of you as a person. Obviously a big fan of you at your profession as well. You're one of the funniest guys out there, and I think that says a lot about you, and I think it speaks volumes about a lot of fighters out there because so many fighters are humble. We have a lot of things in common. You're an avid hunter. We have some mutual friends in the hunting industry. I'm really ready to just dive in and get to the thick of things. We've only got about 50 minutes here, so I want to use it wisely. Congratulations on your last win.
Thank you very much.
Correct me if I'm wrong, your record is 32-14-0. You have the most wins in the lightweight division in the history of UFC.
Congrats.
Dude, I've been a big UFC fan for a long time, since its inception. There's a lot of places around here in the St. Louis area. Some good fighters have come out of this region as well. When I say you're my favorite fighter, I love your tenacity. Your left, I get so excited when you swing that left arm in yours. I get stoked.
I wish you landed more.
I love watching you fight. But before we really get going into this, our mutual friend, Brad Iverson, a.k.a. the Brad of all Brads, wants to challenge you to an Indian leg wrestling match. Can I say Indian? Or am I going to get in trouble for that? Do I?
Yeah. We haven't gotten the opportunity yet.
So, Joe, why don't you go ahead and start it off, buddy?
Well, yeah. I mean, I first of all, I think we should start with Hot Dad Summer. I mean, I'm a hot dad, right? You're celebrating Hot Dad Summer, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Not really. I saw myself in the mirror the one day while I'm like cooking and stuff like that, and it's like I'm wearing like dad shorts and sandals and like out cooking on the smoker and shooting the bow, and it's like I'm a total hot dad right now.
Well, I connected with it. I saw it on Instagram.
I think a lot of dads connected with that, man. So you're from the New Jersey area. If I'm not mistaken, you wrestled in college in Virginia, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And then what year did you make your entry into the UFC or professional MMA?
I started fighting in November of 2005, and then my UFC debut was in October of 2008.
Gotcha. And you are the younger brother of two, right? So
Dan and I, of the other fighters, Dan and I are
correct.
The middle kids.
Okay, gotcha.
We both have a older brother and a younger sister.
Gotcha. And Dan had a very successful career as well.
Yeah, Dan did well. I mean, he fought pretty much every big name at 185s during that time, from Chael Sonnen to Michael Bisping and Damian Maia, and the list goes on. I mean, he went out there against, some of the absolute best on the planet.
I'm just going to sort of hop around here with the questions, Jim. We're obviously going to get into the barbecuing, the smoking, is this the wife? What's up, wife? How we doing? Say hi. What's up? Welcome to Meet America.
Carry
on. We're going to talk about, the hunting and the smoking and whatnot. But I do have a couple specific questions for you in general about UFC. And I want to sort of start that off with, if you know that you're going to be fighting, let's say you're on a card in 3 months, are you continually training, even not knowing that you might be in a card in 90 days, or how do you gauge that?
It's definitely changed throughout my career. When I was younger, there weren't many things to kind of pull me out. Like I'd get a little hunting in here and there, get some fishing and stuff like that. And then, as you start to have a bigger family and opened up a gym of my own, there started to become these other things that kind of pulled me out a little bit. And even kind of before those things were pulling me out, there was a period where I was dealing with a couple injuries that made it where I wasn't constantly training. And as you get older, it gets a little, year round. But for me, it's always kind of just about like, it's not about peaking necessarily, because I've had a lot of opportunities that I've been able to take on shorter notice, because, training is part of my life. So that has been a little bit more difficult, like I said, with the business and with, a family and now a project home.
Yeah.
So it's been a little more difficult than that, but, I know that like, if I got 5 weeks or so, like I can push myself into shape and be ready to go, for a 15-minute fight.
Well, and I'm sure that's because of all the conditioning over the years, right? I mean, not many guys and gals can just say, hey, I mean.
Yeah. Gonna step in the octagon this weekend.
Dude,
month and a half. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly, right? I was telling Joey a story off camera before you came on. I was a cop for 15 years. And I'm 6'4", 300 pounds. I'm not in the best physical shape, but I take pretty good care of myself. And I was telling him that when I was a cop, I was never scared of the bigger guys that might want to challenge me on a call or a domestic or something like that. It was always the guys that were, and gals for that matter, that were shorter than me. And, I used to do a lot of boxing. Before I became a police officer, I trained to do a thing called Guns and Hoses, which is about 15,000 people to raise money for fallen first responders and whatnot here in the St. Louis area. And that was the best shape of my life. I went to an awesome gym in Madison, Illinois, and learned a lot, got in pretty good shape. And the funny thing is, one of my most difficult rests was like a 19-year-old girl that maybe weighed 100 pounds. And that really got me thinking, because around that time, UFC, there's a lot of training facilities popping up all over the country, a lot in our area. And, going into a call or a situation, size doesn't matter anymore. And I mean, if me and you stood next to each other, we'd look a little different in comparison. Now somebody would have to pay me a shitload of money to go against you, because it'd probably last about 3.5 seconds. But, that's one aspect that I was thinking about going into this. And, you usually fight at about 165. Is that what you like to fight at?
155.
155. Gotcha.
Yep.
Now you're usually 170, 175 with no fights coming up, or what? How much do you fluctuate?
Lately, the last couple of years, it's been I'm about 170, 175. Outside of a fight. For a time there, I was pushing about 190. And as I got older and I having Lyme disease as well, that made my weight cuts a lot harder. So I took some size off. I spent some time away from the weights and did a lot more like, steady state cardio and stuff like that to take a little bit of that mass off, which it sucks.
I can imagine.
Working to get to that point. But it was So now it's like about 170, 175-ish, I guess.
Gotcha. You brought up Lyme disease. I know you do a lot of philanthropy, a lot of public speaking engagements for that. And that was just recently brought to my attention maybe a couple months ago. I commend you for being so open about it, being outspoken about it. I've got a few things that are close to my chest that, I like to throw my heart and soul at as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with Lyme disease and sort of some of the challenges you faced and what you've had to overcome?
Like the biggest thing with me was my symptoms, and that's one of the toughest parts about it, is that it affects everybody differently. There's such a broad range of symptoms, and they affect everybody a little bit differently. And to me, my symptoms felt exactly like what it would be like to be a professional fighter for a dozen years.
Really?
That's really what it was. Like starting in about 2015, I started to notice a lot of joint pain. I messed up my neck in 2012 and then like re-injured it in 2014. So then it's like, by 2015, I'm dealing with, numbness and stuff like that in my hands. And if I was sitting down in like on the floor or something with my kids, my legs would go numb. I thought this was from having, a couple compression fractures in my back and a messed up neck and all this stuff. And, I dealt with it, and it was getting to the point where it was getting really bad. Like I'd be in the middle of a workout, totally warm, good sweat going, and I'd go to get up and I'd have to like post on my knee and be grunting and groaning and standing up like a 80-year-old man.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I was going up and down stairs. Like if I was going up the stairs, it was two hands on the railing, like pulling myself up. When I was going down the stairs, it was easier on my knees to go sideways. And I didn't, it wasn't like one of those things where it just happened right away. It was a slow progression. And like one day I kind of caught myself and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I so like afraid to go up and down the stairs like like I'm a professional athlete in my young 30s. Like, it was a little weird. So before one of my fights in early 2016, I was talking to my doctor. We ran some tests and stuff like that. And although I still never tested positive for Lyme disease, he was confident that I had it. So we tried just a course of doxycycline. And he's like, if you have it, it's like you're going to notice a significant difference within, a week or two. And it really was like that. It was about a week or so later, I started noticing just a change in not necessarily so much like the joint pain and stuff like that at that point, but like I was dealing with a lot of brain fog as well. Just like I'd walk into a room and be like, what am I here to do?
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes you do get lost, right? Sometimes we all have that where we're like, forget something,
Sure.
But it was like, it was pretty bad where I couldn't like focus on things. And that's always been one of my strengths, is that no matter what's going on, I've always been able to focus, whether that's been inside of fighting or outside of fighting. And actually that fight, I found out a few days before that fight that I had the Lyme disease. Like I was out in Vegas and my doctor had called me, told me, about it. And that was the only time in a fight where I went into the octagon and I actually saw outside of the octagon. Usually it's like the octagon walls are solid and I just can't see. It's
tunnel vision.
I just it's tunnel vision could be a detriment, but it's always been good for me that it's like I don't think about anything else. I don't hear anything else. All I see is my opponent, and that was the only time in 40 something fights that I've ever been able to like pick faces out in the crowd like during a fight, and it was kind of a weird experience for me.
And so
it took a solid like 2.5 years. Like on Doxy. I was on it for about 6 months. Felt pretty good. Went off of it, and it came back and kicked my for a couple weeks, and got back on it. And about 2 years later, beginning of 2018 is when I really started to see a difference in, what I was able to do physically and kind of coming out of it.
Mm-hmm. So when you received that diagnosis, was there, fear there? And it's the first question. And then did your experience as a professional fighter and dealing with, I'm sure there's sometimes just, intimidation. How did your experience as a fighter help you deal with, what you were facing with Lyme disease?
Honestly, I think that my profession helped me get through it. The disease itself, it just knocks you on your ass. It really does. And it wants you to be sedentary. It wants you to not do anything. The better your body is at carrying oxygen, the easier it is to beat it. So like the bacteria fights with you to make you want to sit down and not do things and not push yourself and not work out and not be healthy. So like having fights and like having to do it, like even when I didn't feel like doing it, having to go to practice, having to get on the treadmill, having to do all those things. It wasn't easy. It sure as hell wasn't easy, but I really do feel like that helped me get over it. There were a couple weird instances, like I said, when it came back, in early 2017, it knocked me on my butt, I had a difficult fight in, early 2017. And, it was like, not only was I fighting a guy that's, went on to, win the interim title and fight for the title, but, I was dealing with, really nasty symptoms and stuff like that. And, it's just one of those things. It's my road, like everybody deals with stuff. And I'd much rather have it be on me than have to leave for a fight or something like that and one of my kids be, laid up with it. So,
sure.
Or any of the other million things that could happen. So, the attitude of MMA and like of wrestling and stuff like that, where it's solely on you out there, I'm happy that this is something that's like, okay, well, it's on me to fight it. It's on me to keep going. And, I'm glad to be the one fighting that battle as opposed to, my wife or my kids.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
There's an old saying out there, and kind of struck by it as you're talking, is I ask not for a lighter load, but for broader shoulders, so I can carry more and do more and be more. And that just kind of came to my head as you were talking there.
Explore the methods and recipes for cooking meat in restaurants across America as we showcase experts on location in their restaurant kitchens to educate, inspire, and entertain. Tune into our travel cooking show, Meat America, only on YouTube and redmeatlover.com.
I wanted to kind of take a step back, if you don't mind, into your earlier career. I was doing some reading about you. I've always kind of just guessed that there's a certain type of kid that likes to get hit, and there's a certain type of kid that doesn't. And that's
I
why
was one of those kids that did not like getting hit.
And that's why my boy plays soccer. He does not like getting hit, and that's okay. I don't think it's, there's any right or wrong there, but I'd love to hear more about your inception story. I know that you were a high school and college wrestler, and then basically one day you walked into a BJJ studio, and kind of the passion was ignited from there. But tell us more. How did you really kind of get started on this path?
When I went to wrestling camp, I went to wrestling camp when I was between 7th and 8th grade. I went to the high school wrestling camp. Both of my brothers were on the high school team, and the coach, assistant coach at the time, he brought out a VHS of like UFC 3 or something like that. One of the single digits.
Way back.
Yeah, way back. And I remember seeing it. We grew up with all the Van Damme movies and all those things. And like my dad would, when during the summer and stuff like that, like outside of wrestling season, he'd take one of the wrestling mats, and he'd bring that back to our house, and in hopes that we would real wrestling. And, no, awesome. We never did. We played Kumite and stuff like that, and just roughhoused and beat the crap out of each other. So like, and being the younger brother of those two, and us being like wrestlers and football players and stuff like that. I mean, I was always a bit smaller than them. Dan is the biggest one of us all, but my brother Michael was, he's 5'11", and Dan and Michael were always the same size growing up, and I was always like a solid 40 pounds, 30 pounds, less than them, and it was just that way, right? I was always the little one.
Dude, I feel your pain because I'm the littlest guy in my family. So
wow,
yeah, dude.
Yeah. So like, it was always just getting bounced around, and and we were always the types of kids that we were doing not necessarily reckless or dangerous things, but like we were climbing trees and falling out of them, and just doing kid stuff, really, so it was always just, I wouldn't say it was a rough upbringing, but it was a rough and tumble upbringing, right? We rolled around quite a bit, and definitely were roughhousing as kids, and I fell in love with it then when I saw it, and I was like, man, I want to do this, and went through high school wrestling, and I went to Virginia Tech, and I didn't have the plans to wrestle when I went there. And then after a couple weeks, I missed it. I ended up walking on late, and within a couple weeks, I was starting. And that was a tough couple of months. Wrestling in a weight class that I shouldn't have been wrestling in. Like we kind of snuck our way by the hydration tests and stuff like that. Carried a cup of my coach's pee down to the trainer's office so I could pass a hydration test. Like busted my butt to make 141s for a couple weeks, and wrestled some studs, and had a room that pushed me. I never had that as a kid. I mean, I wrestled with some really good wrestlers at some of the clubs that I was a member of and stuff like that, but I never had a day to day. And, I went into the Virginia Tech room, and I'm wrestling with guys that were, like a 5-time prep national champs, and, and multiple time state champs. And, it pushed me, and I learned a lot about myself, and what it means to kind of have a good group of training partners around you. And, kind of took some time off from school. Cutting weight from Thursday to Saturday didn't help my grades because,
right.
Friday classes usually pretty tough to get to.
Right.
Because I was in pretty miserable shape at that point. But it took a little time off, and Dan and I, like I said, we had been watching it every time there was a pay-per-view. We were getting the Pride or UFC pay-per-views, and finally, like we had talked about it, and finally decided to take that first step through the door. And it was funny because our coach at the time, our first coach, he's like, like, what are you training for? What do you want out of this? And we're like, we want to fight. And he's like, all right, give me like 2 or 3 years. I'm like, all right, like we want to fight, like I was 21 at the time. Like I wanted to get in there, like still full,
Sure.
Piss and vinegar at that point.
Man.
And
Invincible.
Yeah, exactly. And it was literally 6 months to the day. Like we walked into the door, 6 months later, we were walking into a ring for our first fights, and things just kind of snowballed from there. And a couple of years later, we were making our UFC debuts.
That's incredible. And I mean, do you, you're highly successful at what you do for a profession. You've worked your butt off for all these years. I know you've got some hobbies outside of your profession, hunting, grilling, all that good stuff. And we're going to get into that here real soon. But I mean, do you ever look in the mirror sometimes, Jim? And I know you're a very a humble guy. And I think a lot of fighters are, but I think you're all around awesome dude. I think you're a good role model for a lot of your fans out there. Are there points throughout your week or your days where you look in the mirror and you're just like, this is pretty cool, the path that I'm on right now and what I've been able to do for all these years? I mean, you're doing what you love, right?
Yeah. And it is, it's cool. You know, like it's the tough part about it is that I'm spoiled. Okay. You know, like, I mean, I grew up in, you know, wrestling and then in combat sports. Like my entire life has been based around competitive athletics. And it's like, you know, I look at my 4 kids and it's like, all right, I got to feed these kids. I got to try to at least give them help through college if they want to go that route and stuff like that. And it's like, I can only fight for a few more years. And now it's like, all right, what's that next thing? And then it's like, man, I'm going to have to like put on a button up shirt 5 days a week or something like come on. Yeah. Like, I'd rather put on training shorts and, you know, and you know, and my cup and some gloves and right. Go roll around. But yeah, it's awesome. It's been awesome to be able to do it. And, you know, I'm thankful for the opportunities that I've gotten. I'm thankful for the support that I've gotten from my family and, you know, my wife. And, you know, it hasn't always been easy. But I've got an amazing group, you know, support group behind me. And, they've definitely helped me through some of the harder times. Sure. And, yeah, it's been awesome to be able to do this and to get where I've gotten to. And it's, you know, in the lead up for this last fight, a lot of the, you know, I always get asked like retirement questions, when are you going to retire and this and that. And
does that piss you off?
No, it doesn't piss me off. You know, I'm okay having those conversations. I feel like some of my peers aren't comfortable because they feel like once they start to talk about it, it's going to look like a chink in the armor or right. a weakness, where I feel like it's the responsible thing to do. I mean, the sport it's a platform, you know, it's an opportunity in that springboard to get to something else. And to be further ahead in something else, even though you might not have experience in it. So like, that's what I try to tell, you know, the younger guys coming up, like, use this experience, use it. And don't look at it like, hey, I'm going to make enough money to not have to do anything and retire on an island somewhere by fighting. 'Cause it's probably not going to happen. Right. You know, Connor's made enough money in MMA, you know, and depending on his lifestyle, maybe Khabib, right? But like, vast majority of these other fighters that have made a good amount of money doing it, they still need to do other things. Sure. And, you know, a decent amount, make that step into like movies and stuff like that. And that's great. You know, but I tell the guys to, you know, try to use it and start building on something else. And like I said, use it as that springboard. But, yeah, it's cool to be here, you know, and I can only
imagine it's, you know, and like I said, I think you're a pretty uncommon man. It takes a special person to do what you're doing, for one, and to reach that level of success and to have that humble mindset as well. There's a lot of guys out there that aren't very humble people. And to me, that's a big turnoff. And that's just not an athlete. That's just human beings, man. You know,
well, yeah, you speak about humble. If you've ever watched a UFC fight at a bar, you'll know that there's about 20 guys in that room that think that they can be in there doing it, and they're willing to show you in the parking lot afterwards.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we're going to move on a little bit here, Jim. I know your hobbies include a lot of hunting. I was turned on to Dudley years ago. Before the world of social media blew up and everything else. I've never met him. I've chatted with him a couple times on Instagram and whatnot. You know, let's talk a little bit about your journey in hunting and archery and everything else, and then go ahead and segue into the barbecue, because I love it, man. Whenever I see people out there just really enjoying the journey of the barbecue world as well.
Yeah, my brothers and I, we didn't grow up necessarily hunting, but we grew up hearing the stories. My dad as a kid, he ran pointers and beagles. And I mean, the hunting was different, regulation wise and season length and stuff like that. When he was a kid, I mean, you had a 6-day season and that was it. And, it was bucks only. And it was difficult, for whitetail, and they hunted upland quite a bit, and then rabbits and stuff. But they grew up where they needed that. They needed to put that protein on the table. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna try to keep talking as I.
No, that's okay.
So we grew up hearing the stories and not necessarily getting to do it ourselves, because my dad, I mean, he worked 6 days a week. And there was no hunting on Sundays when we were kids. So it was difficult. And then a lot of times during, there was always football games or right into wrestling season and stuff like that. So there was always something going on that it always took a back seat, and he didn't necessarily want to force us into it either. But we heard all the stories, and like my grandfather, when he would, he lived out in Bozeman.
Beautiful land.
And there was a point where my dad we almost picked up shop and moved us out there, and I still want to punch him in the face there.
Right.
But we got to play in the woods, and like we were always like, I mean, we were the kids at 6 years old with pocket knives and whittling and stuff like that. And, I mean, I was just talking to my oldest brother about it. Like we would, we lived off in this piece of land that there was just acres and acres behind us, estate land. And we would go out, and there were times where Michael, he's 4 years older than me. I couldn't have been more than 6. So he's 10 years old, and there's, 3 of us, maybe my friend who lived down below us, like wandering out miles from home. Like can't imagine like these days. Like I'm surrounded by state land now, like the place that we just got, and like it, like you're like, my kid's gonna go off and do what I did. Like that's crazy,
right? Especially in today's world,
right?
Yeah, like nothing bad ever happened, but like we would, we'd go out and wander around and build forts and blinds and and be kids and like find tracks and stuff like that. And did all that stuff. And when we were teenagers, we ended up getting our taking the hunter's education course and getting our licenses. And I think I was probably like 15 or 16 when we did that, maybe 14. And I got my first deer when I was, I think, just turned 17, 16 or 17. 17. I was just turned 17. I took opening day of, I took a doe day. Took doe day off of school, and ended up, I fell asleep with my dad's Parker, a little side by side shotgun.
Yeah.
Took a nap, woke up, and there was a doe in front of me, and I hit her with one pellet of the buckshot.
Nice.
And luckily right through the heart.
So were you hooked then? And when did you start getting real hot and heavy with archery? Because I mean I watch all your Instagram stories, dude. I mean, when you're into it deep. I like to. Yeah, I like to get in, like I'm a fan of the process of everything. Mm-hmm. Like I like to do as much of everything as I can. And it's easier and better mm-hmm. to have somebody else do it for me most of the time. But like, I think I got that deer, and then maybe like 2 years later, I got my first one with a bow. And it was a lot more difficult. It seemed like, I think there were less deer, less seasons. Like as kids, we would make stick bows every summer. We'd be home, we'd make a stick bow with some mason line and get a sapling and steal some of my dad's old cedar arrows, and we'd be
stumping through the woods, and, breaking all his arrows.
Yeah, of course.
But it was always something that I wanted to do. I've made 2 laminate longbows. Like, I shot a hog with it, and it's like, that was cool. I want to shoot something else. I want to keep stepping that game up. But yeah, like I'd gotten a few, and then like with Dudley, I used his videos to set up my bow and my wife's bow. Through the whole process, putting the knocking points on and all that stuff. And when I fought at UFC 200, I saw that big guy sitting right behind Rogan, and I'm like walking out there, and that was like, I was before I wasn't quite in the tunnel vision yet.
Yeah. Like,
I'm walking out and like, I know that guy. Like, all right, go out, fought, did well, 2 minutes later, I'm screaming my brains out. And I just jumped up on the cage, and I was like, "Hey, dude, let's go shoot something sometime."
That's awesome.
And like, he hit me up on, sent me a message on Twitter, like a week later, something like that, and we started talking back and forth, and I ended up meeting him at the ATA show, that following January or whatever, and it was actually one of those things. Like, he, Dud he's awesome. He's one of the most generous people I've ever met in my life. And like I said, I was having a tough time in like early 2017. And he invited me out on a hunt. It was like 2 weeks before my fight. And we went out, he invited me out on a hog hunt. And like, some people were like, why are you going why are you going away for a couple days right before a fight? If I hadn't gone out, I don't know if I would have made it to the fight.
Right.
Like, I was that beat up, that run down, and like, he gave me kind of that opportunity to just like recharge a little bit. And, I think I had a good performance against a very tough opponent. I think I could have fought him better. I'd love to fight him again. But
let's make that happen.
I think the only reason that the fight was as close as it was is because I had that couple days to just, decompress, take my head out of it for a few days and kind of reset. But I love the idea of like taking a bow and and building all the arrows and doing all the things and like having putting in all that work, and then it's like, all right, I take that machine that I've built, that system that I've built, and I go out and I harvest some an animal, and then I take that meat back, and then I'm there through the whole process of from butcher, cleaning it to carrying it out.
It truly is a beautiful process, and I got 3 really close friends: Nathan Reese, and obviously Brad Iverson, who you've met, Dayton. Dayton comes over to my house every other weekend, and we jack around and do some cooking and whatnot. And they've been harping on me so much, dude, you got to pull the trigger. You got to start getting into archery. Well, I'm one of those people that if I start something, I go 100% at it, no matter what it is. I don't care if it's, guess what? If we're drinking beers tonight, I'm going to give it 100%. You know what I'm saying? But there is a beauty to it. And I've talked to a lot of guys, I deal with post-traumatic stress here and there. Back in the day, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I was going through a lot, and I'm at a point in my life now where I'm able to curtail it, control it through certain methods. And that's why my buddies are like, man, you pull the I mean, this is weekly. I mean, we're in a little group text, and they're like, this is the week you're getting your first bow. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I'm raising my kids and I'm running a business with my business partner, but that's on my bucket list. Hopefully in the next 4 or 5 years, I can really get heavy into it. I've sort of got the barbecue thing down, but as far as the archery side of it, it's something that I really want to get into. So let's move on to the barbecue side of it real quick. So Joe, I don't know if you've ever seen any of his Instagram cooks or anything like that.
Couple.
You're a Traeger guy. You know what you're doing around the grill. I mean, I see a lot of stuff out there that's not really the way it should be. But, when did you start your barbecue journey and your cooking journey? Because, I mean, you cook up some pretty good stuff, man.
Thank you. I grew up in a family where like dinner was our thing. Dinner was our church, Amen. I mean, we, my mom and my dad, but mostly as a kid, my mom was doing most of the cooking. And, like if we had practice or something like that, I mean, we ate dinner together as a family, no matter what, whether it was, at 9 o'clock at night because we had games or wrestling matches or practice or this or that. So it was always something that like, once we, started our family, like I wanted to really like make dinner a thing, like not just, all right, we're having chicken nuggets tonight, so I put the pressure on my wife too, to learn, and it's one of those things. It was like, if you can read, you can cook.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's just, you follow some directions and then it's like, okay, all right, this is how the process goes. And then you can start adapting and stuff like that and changing things around. But it's really as easy as following some instructions. But yeah, like I grew up in a family that what food was important, and it was the thing that brought us all together. And I mean, the fact of the matter, and it still remains to this day, and it does bug me a little bit, is that I'm the worst cook in my family. Mm-hmm. Both of my parents, both of my brothers, and my sister are all phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Like my oldest brother is like legit. Like he can do whatever he wants to do. My dad is very good cook. Dan is a very good cook. My mom can do, anything. My sister, like, she's a legit when it comes to like, pastries and stuff like that too. Like, I mean, it pisses me off. It really does.
Yeah. I can understand that.
But, yeah, so it's just one of those things that like, I like the idea of putting effort into something and, going from the process of, raw ingredients to something that I get to share with people and my friends or my family or whomever. It's just an enjoyable thing for me. And that's one of the reasons why I do it. I like to just share it, that's like why I got into like home brewing. I haven't been able to home brew in a little bit with the move and all that stuff, but, of course it was like you make 5 gallons of beer and it's like, okay, well, this is good. And we, it's like 2 cases of beer and you have some friends over and it's gone. And it's like, and we do 10 gallons and we do 20 gallons.
Oh yeah.
And then you're making a giant thing of beer so that you can just share with people and have a big party and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, barbecue's the same way. And I, it's one of those things where I try to push myself. I try to get a little more out of myself and try something new and, just kind of work with it.
Well, also with your profession, it's so important to be able to cook for yourself and control your diet. When you walk into a grocery store, it's filled, with such crap. By and large, I actually heard someone speak recently and they said, if you want to go to the grocery store and eat healthy, never walk down one aisle that's in the middle of it. Just stay completely to the exterior. And, outside of just being relatable to, your profession, Mike and I have talked about this before. It's cathartic almost, it's a way to get some solitude in your day and to kind of get away from I have a young family. I know Mike does too. And with everything that goes on between those sports that you were mentioning, and now I'm on the other side of it, he's got to get there. She's got to get, to her place. And it does provide a little bit of calm in an otherwise kind of hectic day.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is too, Jim, is like you've done a heck of a job writing your story. And, what for your fans that are going to be listening, what's in store for Jim Miller moving forward? What are the things that you want to accomplish personally, professionally? If you don't mind me asking.
Professionally, I know that I've got another run in me, and I just need to coax it out of my body.
Yeah, right.
That's the tough part. But it's I know that I can beat anybody in my division. It's just a matter of showing up and doing my thing. I've been doing this long enough, and I know what I'm capable of, and I know the technique is there, and it's a matter of just getting the motor to do what it's supposed to do, and getting this part out of the equation.
Right.
I want to be able to share more. That's really what it comes down to. Like that's one of the big things I'd like to do more with, my advocacy about Lyme disease and stuff like that. And I'd like to do more with just sharing, like the process. And that's one of the things that with jiu-jitsu, right? So like they say that, when you get your black belt, it's not the end of a journey, it's the beginning. Right. You've proved that you can learn something. You prove that you can be dedicated to something and change yourself and learn about yourself and all that stuff. And so now is the point as a black belt to then begin to learn and to teach yourself again. And that's kind of the attitude that I want to share with people, is that like, you can learn to do anything. You can do anything. It's just a matter of, putting your mind to it and just stepping back a little bit and dropping the ego here and there and not worrying about maybe what people say about you. Like on social media, are you worried about is somebody going to have a negative attitude? Honestly, that's why I started putting singing videos up on Instagram.
Right.
I started singing.
Well,
of course I'm horrible, but you really think that I care if somebody says that I suck?
That's the thing, Jim. We were talking about this in a previous episode with a mutual friend of ours, and this is the happiest I've been throughout my PTS journey in 8 years. And I'm at a point where I don't care what you think about me. I just want to be happy. And if my happiness consists of, just being with my dogs, cooking outside, raising my kids, that's for me. I'm a little out there. I know that, but that's how I am. That's how I was built. So it's refreshing to hear a professional athlete of your caliber saying that, because I think not only kids need to hear it, I think there's a lot of adults that need to that,
Yeah.
Well, it's the old saying, don't take any criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from.
Exactly.
And where we're going to be hosting this podcast is on our YouTube channel. It's going to be an audio format, but we're about ready to hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if there's ever anything we can do to help you get your message out to a wider audience, would love to be a resource that you can use and you can tap into to get your message out, because I can tell just from what you said, there's very much an overlapping mindset here, and I know right here as well. We are coming up close on time, and there's just a question I have to ask you before we go. When I was in college, I actually spent some time working as a doorman in New Orleans. I went to school at Tulane University, and I saw a lot of fights happening in the bar, and I've always really been enthralled with what I call the wrong guy stories, where someone just messed with the wrong guy. Now, I know you have to have a lot of friends like yourself who are certified bad. And so can you share with us a story or time? It doesn't have to be about you. I don't want to have you incriminate yourself, but have you ever been in a situation where someone was just running their mouth to the wrong guy?
I have, yeah. I tend to be pretty good at avoiding those situations. I don't put myself in those spots where, I've been in one fight outside of a MMA fight in my life, and it was years before I even started fighting, and it was stupid, right? Of course, alcohol was involved, and puffed up egos and stuff like that, and it kind of got drug into it. But we were at a buddy's house, and again there was a little bit of drinking involved, and
salute.
My brother Dan is a very protective individual, and this one kid, like, so our friend of ours was wrestling around with his roommate, and of course one of the other kid's friends thought it was serious and stuff like that, and started being a little bit of an ass. And my brother pretty much picked him up and threw him out of the front door, and like, and the kid was still running his mouth, and it's like, to the point where I'm like, damn, like, just don't even worry about it. Like, right. But it would not have, fortunately for that kid, it didn't get any worse than that, because it easily could have. We weren't too far into our journey with MMA, but we were far enough that it would not have, I don't even think if we hadn't started MMA yet, it would have ended well for the kid. But yeah. Dan was not the kid to be running your mouth.
I have a little bit of experience with some MMA when I was in my 20s, Muay Thai, Krav. And, you learn really quickly, the tips and tricks of the trade that can really inflict punishment on another person. And just like anything else that you get that can wield great power, there comes some great responsibility with that. You hear people say, well, if I had, for example, your skills, I'd run around beating the hell out of people. No, you wouldn't. Yeah. Because you really get, how that could really adversely change someone's life, even if they are in the wrong. And so anyway, like I said, working that door in New Orleans, it was always the guy who didn't say anything. It was like, oh God, you're messing with the wrong guy. It was the guy that was over here chirping. It's like, you're about ready to get handed
gotta be wary of the quiet ones.
That's right.
Yeah, how that works,
Well, I know he said we're getting ready to wrap up with time. I'd love to get you down here during our Smoking on Main Festival next year. You've got a huge fan base, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that would love to meet you. We can do some barbecuing. Speaking of, craft beer and whatnot, we're right now on Old Herald Distillery. You got to check out this place if you come here. Derek's a madman. He's a scientist whenever it comes to this. It's scientist. Crazy, man. But once again, I just want to reiterate, Jim, that, thank you for your time. Tell your wife thank her for her appearance on our show. But like I said, we're big fans. We're always going to be rooting for you. I think you're the best guy in the UFC industry, and I think, like I said, I think you're a great role model for kids coming up. It helps that you're a family man and love to barbecue as well. I wish you nothing but the best, Jim. If there's anything that Joey or Red Meat Lover or Code 3 Spices can ever do for you, especially on the Lyme disease side of it, as far as getting the word out on that, you got our number. More than happy to help you out. I wish you nothing but the best. Joe, you want to close us out, buddy?
Well, yeah, I just want to ask you how our listeners can follow Hot Dad Summer and you across the entire interwebs. How do they find you, Jim?
Really, the best way is through Instagram, which is Jim Miller _155. Yeah, it's kind of where I keep most of my stuff going these days. I kind of stay off of Twitter. It's like the Wild West over there.
You got that right.
Yeah, it's a cesspool.
It is the Wild West.
Well, like Mike said, really appreciate you joining us. We hope that our audience really enjoyed having Jim on today. If you like this video, if you're watching on YouTube, well, you know the drill. Go ahead and hit that big thumbs up like button, or even better, subscribe to our channel so you can follow us along every week as we continue to introduce you to really amazing people all across the country and meet America. Also, if you're listening to this podcast in audio form, one of the greatest compliments you can give to us is a positive review on iTunes. Hit 5 stars. This has been a great interview, and we're having a lot of fun doing this. And leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Until then, follow us along as we meet America.
Subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel at redmeatlover.com and learn more at meetamericapodcast.com.